we're hoping that this overall memorial becomes a destination that people coming through the state of Nebraska stop and visit this, because this is something that is being built for the entire state of Nebraska. This is not just eastern Nebraska. This is for the entire state of Nebraska and for all the veterans that served during the war in Vietnam. And out of Nebraska, there's over 40,000 that served.
The other interesting thing is this will be probably one of the most unique memorials in the country, because all of this will have QR codes where people with phones can come up and snap a QR code and get a history of what they're looking at. So we put a lot of work into what goes on the obelisks and what goes on to the various walls and stuff. So that makes it fairly unique, and that's, you know, we're kind of hoping that people understand that uniqueness and they'll come in and get more of the history of the war and what was going on in the United States, both good and bad, because there was a lot of good and bad with the war. So the hope is, because we're located in Papillion, we're basically halfway to Lincoln, halfway to Omaha, and if you look at the population of Nebraska, that's like 80% of the population. Plus we got good routes, 80 and 29 and stuff going through, so we think it'll be a real good draw. Sarpy County tourism is really gearing up to make sure this is on the thing. And if our plans all go well, back up on the back side up here, we'd like to build a building that would house some of the museum type things that would be there, plus a gift shop, plus an office for our executive director. So, and Sarpy County is very interested in participating in that. So,
Sumter Theater is right on the other side of this fence line here. That's where Sumter Theater is here. Then this wall line here is on the far east side, where it drops off at the far end of the property. Coming around to the south end, you'll see the helicopters here on the south side. And then these other things are benches and the obelisks. There are 11 obelisks, and one for each year of the war. Then in the middle here, we have the American flag with the POW MIA flag underneath it. Then over here we have a wall that was donated, and it has the 396 veterans from Nebraska that died in Vietnam, and the 4 members of the USS Evans that died in a naval accident.
I think where the purples are individual flags for the Navy, the Army, Marine Corps, and Air Force, and
Coast Guard.
This guy Howard Ball that was on our board, wherever the Marine Corps flag is, he's got a dedicated bench there, and we're going to do a service when that bench is put in place and actually put some of his ashes underneath that. So this thing becomes very close to all of us that were friends of Howard. His widow, Shar Ball, is now very active with us on the board. She's an honorary member, but she's working on our tile program. So Tom was able to find us a helicopter from a contact with the Vietnam Veterans Group in Vermont, and they had gotten this helicopter 3 years before, but they didn't have the money to refurbish it. So it was in Bennington, Vermont, and they gave it to us. We had to transport it back. It was interesting because we transported it from Bennington, Vermont to Bennington, Nebraska, and then moved it over to Iowa Western College, where they agreed to help us restore it. And so with the help of the Iowa Western and some of our members who were familiar with aircraft maintenance, we got it all refurbished, and on September 21st of last year, we had a grand opening. And the interesting thing was, we had an article about this helicopter in one of the vet magazines, and we got a call, because originally it was set up as a medevac helicopter, and we got a call from a guy in California that said he read the tail number on it, and he said it wasn't a medevac helicopter, it was a command and control helicopter, and he was the first crew chief on it. And then he rounded up the rest of the original crew, and they came in on September 21st when we did the grand opening, or the grand restoration, and we were inside the hangar at Iowa Western, did all that, and then they opened the door, the helicopter was outside, and they had 6 grown men that were in tears because they hadn't seen the helicopter or their friends, you know, for 50-something years, and they've become kind of adopted members of our group right now. It was really, very, very emotional time. And the 6 students that worked the most on this helicopter out there, And these guys got together, and it was very emotional because the kids were trying to learn about the war, and they talked with these guys, and they all ended up signing the inside of the helicopter. So very emotional time. And all this crew is coming in when we do the grand opening in June. Yeah, there's in the helicopter itself, there'll be a 60 caliber machine gun gunner and another gunner, and they'll be coming out the door, so to speak, as when they were landing. And down here will be two GIs or Army guys that will be carrying this one soldier, and the idea is that they will be moving toward the helicopter to lift up in.
We would call in the helicopter for support and resupply, and they'd also take back our wounded and KIAs. And what we would do, you would normally have the guy in a poncho, and you'd have one gentleman on each end of the poncho lifting it into the helicopter for evacuation and to get him back to the medical facilities. And the sooner we can get them back to good medical help, the better the chances are for survival. And because of the helicopter in the war in Vietnam, a lot of veterans that were wounded had a better chance of survival because of the immediate medical attention.
And then the gentleman that's responsible for building this, what he did was he went off at Air Force Base and got several models, if you will, actual military people, and then he scanned them to get all the proper dimensions and everything. And then he researched the uniforms, and he built this model based on those exact things. So it's very real, and everything he's built into it's incredible. He made up 4 of these in miniature, 1/6 miniature, and we sold 2 of them, and we got 2 more for sale, and there'll only be 4 that'll ever be built. So, and for people that were in country, it's particularly meaningful because, like Tom, they actually did that kind of thing. So if you go back to the original design of this memorial that Prohaska did, the whole idea was you would come into here and go through all this stuff, and it was kind of confusing. And then the peaceful exit was down here at the helicopter. So that was kind of the concept that Paul came up with when he designed it. And we've stayed with that because it's very apropos. You know, Vietnam was a very confusing war, and getting out of it was very important. And this whole scene down here is they're supposed to represent the peaceful, safe exit out of the battles.